Last conversation I had with you one on one in real life, it got interrupted by all the music and whatnot. But we were talking about Haile Selassie, and you were telling me how he became the figurehead of the Rastafarian religion. But you didn't finish telling me the story of how it happened. So, what's the story?
Uh, I can't remember exactly where I left off or even how we even got to that conversation. I feel like um, we're a bit all over the place, but I may be wrong. And the way that I've always heard how the story went was that um, Ethiopians in general, they're pretty well renowned by Jamaican people. And because of that, they saw Haile Selassie to be a really prominent figure. I think probably by like physical features and I think how maybe progressed Ethiopia was at the time. So much so that they would keep an eye on him and everything that he did. And there was at one point where he landed in, I think, Jamaica, um, and he stepped foot off the plane and it began to rain. And that to them was like the defining moment where this man is God, or this man is like, a really top tier figure that needs to be praised. And I don't know if idolize is the word, but maybe that. And that's how I understood or I learned that, Rastafarianism became a thing. And also like it was brought up by Bob Marley and those types of people at the time. And I'm not really sure what they believe and what they do as of now, but that was always funny to me, and it still is to this day. I hear it, I guess, anecdotally from others, but um, Jamaicans just love Ethiopians, and every time you tell me you're Ethiopian, they're just like, "Wow, that's amazing," and they want to be your friend. So, yeah, that's how I've heard it. I may be completely wrong, and maybe just urban legend, but that's how I've been taught it.
That is a fascinating story. Yeah, and I was just watching a documentary on the Baha'is yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but it's sort of a recent religion in the past 100, 200 years. Came out of Iran. And the idea behind their beliefs is that there's only one religion, and different people across the globe have come, including the prophets and other mythological figures, and they're all just saying the same thing, but in different places at different times. But
Mm.
it's never been entirely clear which figures fall under this category and which ones are not in it. So I wonder about Haile Selassie and if he's in that group. But that's just something I was thinking about, and having you on here today. It's like, oh yeah, I remember we had that conversation. But you mentioned Bob Marley, and I was thinking about his music is good stuff. It's very informative. And I was thinking about how informative songs can be because recently I heard a song by Tamino and it's called Sanpaku. That's a term in Japanese which means three whites. And it refers to eyes that they're white on both sides here and then at the bottom as well, like Billie Eilish's eyes. And I've always noticed people having those eyes, but I never knew there was a term for it. And it was just so exciting to me to learn that term, that there's terms for things like that. Sanpaku.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I actually I feel like I have to see a picture. I'm a visual type of person, but do you mean like when you say three eye or three whites in the eyes, is it like a layered type of thing that I guess Billie Eilish or others have, or how does that look in a person?
Well, for example, if you look at my eyes, and I think yours as well, there's the whites right here, and then this brown kind of covers the middle. With Billie Eilish, for example, or anyone that has Sanpaku eyes, it's the two whites on the side, but at the bottom it's also white. The color of the eye is actually a little bit more up, so it'd be kind of like that or something.
Okay. Huh. And how's the song?
The song was great. It's fantastic. Everything Tamino makes is so poetic. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
Yeah,
What
good
type of
stuff.
music is it?
I don't know if I'd call it folk. It's very much strings. It's it's artistic, it's poetic. I don't know what the term would be, but it's beautiful stuff. And what's interesting about him is his grandfather was a famous Egyptian musician, and then he kind of inherited that, which I think is
Mm.
cool.
And so his music is in Egyptian or in like Arabic or something, or is it?
So he's from Belgium, but his music is all in English, as far as I know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to check him out. I gotta start exploring other things. Um, I feel
What
like
have
I'm
you been
too,
exploring these
yeah.
days?
Well, I mean, since Ramadan has come and gone at this point, um, for the most part, I've tried to cut music out as much as I can, of course, during the month. But then now afterwards, I'm like, well, they say that as a sign of your, fasting to have been accepted, um, a good sign is that whatever you had done or were doing, I guess that wasn't really halal or as halal as it should be, maybe something makruh. You let it go and you leave it behind. And for me, music has been like the toughest thing. Like I feel like, and it's not even that I'm addicted to it or like I just love like music in general is more so that it's good filler sound when you're in the gym or maybe occasionally when you're driving, something like that. So for me, during the month, I've been listening to like nasheeds. Like I don't know if you go on Spotify and you search like gym nasheeds, and it's like a picture of like Khabib or some guy from like the back in those days with a turban and some dust around him, and it makes you feel like you're listening to something that's good. It's praising Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, but then at the same time, it's not as like it's not the same kind of hit for me as as regular music. Um, so I've been trying that, and then now it's like, okay, let me replace the nasheeds with like Quran in general. And I don't know if you've heard of Omar Hisham, but like that guy is like phenomenal as far as his
Yeah.
recitation. Um, and it's hard because like you can't really listen to that in a gym. I mean, you're not really focused on the Quran. You're supposed to be paying attention, but it's so good at the same time the way he pronounces and recites is that it fills up those other moments, like when you're driving, or if you need some something to listen to as like you're focused on something, one or the other work or whatever the case may be. And now like in the gym, at least, music has been leaking back in with those Spotify playlists they'll get you, and it's like regular like nonsense, not even like hip hop or stuff. It's just like those techno things that just sounds. And I feel like, all right, that's a step up, right? It's not as bad as like these crazy like derogatory music or lyrics and everything in music nowadays. So that's, I guess, like what I can say is what I'm trying to explore in a way is like something less intense as like the generic music that I've been so used to.
Wow. What was the sort of stuff you were listening to before? And was there a moment where you realized consciously this stuff is probably not good for me to listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's nothing crazy like the Kanye's, the Drake's, the rap, the hip hop, the whatever. Travis Scott. I mean, those types of guys I would mainly listen to be honest. And I think what clicked was, I mean, you go on TikTok and you doom scroll, right? And you get to a point where the algorithm shows you a lot of Islamic stuff, depending on what you're spending time on, I guess, however the algorithm works. And I'm getting videos about how bad music is, and primarily for the reason of the lyrics. And the lyrics are all about like, nonsense, crazy stuff. And you're subconsciously listening to it and paying attention to the words, but you're not really like, of course, you're not staying there and like, I mean, usually I'm not like, feeling like the crazy things that they're saying. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you start memorizing it subconsciously because you're hearing it so often and you're saying these crazy things. And you're like, okay, well, this may not be the best thing to listen to. And once you start kind of clicking in that moment or in those times, you'll realize exactly what is being said and how wild the lyrics are. So I think at that point I was like, okay, well, let me tone it down or at least listen to something that's not as crazy as these guys, like the guys I just brought up. Their music is well known for that. For anyone that listens to that, you'll know like it's insane. Um,
Yeah.
but they have a different lifestyle, and of course they're not Muslim, so it's a whole different realm for them.
Yeah, some of those people that you mentioned, listening to them, it sounds like a trance even. Like as cliche as this might sound, it sounds like, oh my God, this guy is singing a spell or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's I remember I was at UH when I found out about the tragedy at the Travis Scott concert in Houston at Astroworld and people dying. And there was like a big conspiracy about that. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in general, like I've never been to a concert, so I don't know. But from what I hear, it's not the best environment to put yourself in, regardless of whether you like music or not. It's crazy people that hang out there and they're off of something, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever the case may be, and then it just takes one person that just loses it, and could do something to you, or of course because of the just the generic or general amount of people that are there, you have that situation at that Travis Scott concert where I think it was somebody that got trampled or a few people that got
Yeah, I think several
suffocated or something
people.
along those lines.
Yeah, I know there were some deaths involved as well. There's actually a Muslim
Mhm.
guy that died over there as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just, I remember the same day, I was in the same city, and it was maybe 25 minutes away what was going on. I was like, damn, that really happened. Whoa.
Yeah, it makes you think. I mean, do you want that to be your last moments? If you're, of course, if you're Muslim and you think in afterlife, then probably not, right? In the same vein, if you're driving and you're listening to uh this, crazy Kanye nowadays and whatever the heck he's rapping about, you don't want that to be like the last stuff you listen to before you get into an accident or something happens, and if it does happen. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like how I try to think about it.
Recently, actually, there was a Turkish musician, Volkan Konak. He died on stage performing. And when my friend told me that, it hit me for a moment. I was like, damn, that was his last moment. He was on the stage performing. Apparently, there's footage of it as well. And yeah, as you said, do you really want that to be your last moment? I don't know.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's hard enough, I think, trying to make yourself into a good person as far as the actions that you do and all the rules and things that you need to kind of adhere to as a Muslim. So you don't want that to be like something that gets you in trouble, when it counts most. And it's such an easy thing to avoid. Like if you make the argument with like if you touch drugs and you can get addicted, okay, or alcohol, I guess you can become an addict and an alcoholic, but a music addict, I feel like you can just snap out of that. Just stop paying for Spotify or Apple Music and maybe try to transition to something else as best as you can. Of course, none of us are perfect, but yeah, that's how I think about it.
Speaking of addictions, you're not very active on social media or Instagram. Do you feel like you're absolved from the social media addictions that exist?
Uh, it's social media in the sense of like posting things and showcasing whatever I'm doing in my life. Yeah, I mean, I don't really post anything. I think the last time I posted on Instagram was 2017 or something,
Oh my God.
and
Nearly a decade.
because yeah, because I haven't. I'm literally a very boring person. I have nothing really to share. In my opinion, like I'm not gonna say like, oh, you know what? It's really nice outside today, and I'm here in this room. I'll take a picture of it and post it. Like I don't think anybody really cares about what I'm doing like that. So in the sense of posting, yeah, I don't ever really feel the need. But when it comes to like I said, the doom scrolling on TikToks or even if you get on Instagram Reels, then that's like the time sucker. That's what gets me. And since the algorithms that they set up are so good and you like or watch one thing that's funny or interesting to you, and they just kind of flood you with more content, then you realize like you're on it for like half an hour at some point. You're like, okay, well, that's like my fingers are starting to hurt scrolling, or an hour. I feel like those are rookie numbers. It could be more than that. Um, And that's where like I feel like
The
I still have a
numbers.
lot to improve. Yeah, because there's some people they're on there for like 10 hours a day. I thankfully I've never been, to that extent, but there was a time where I was like an hour or 2 hours, especially during Ramadan, like years ago. You're bored, you're not eating, you're not really exercising as often during the day at least. And then you get kind of stuck. So yeah, I have some work to do.
I wonder what the numbers are of these. There's certain people I run into in real life where I see them in the process of doom scrolling in real life. They're just sitting there in public and they're just going at it. And I wonder, man, what are the hours on that guy's phone? If he's out in public doing this, wild, become like a zombie in a way. And then when you try to talk to them, it's like you have to snap them out of it, and then they look up. What? It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to be like that with Twitter in the gym, especially. In between sets, you're like bored and you're not gonna like, stare and look at other people or watch videos or anything. I feel like I just want to read stuff. And then Twitter used to be where I'm just scrolling and like refreshing. I scroll back to the top, refresh. Okay, what's new? Scroll through that. Okay, cool. It's been 3, 4 minutes. Do my set, come back to Twitter. And it was like that for a while. And I think it's been a year now where I was like, okay, let me just delete it. And if I ever come back to it, I'll come back to it, but I'll do my best not to. And I do think it changed with, it switched over to X. So I feel like the content and the way I guess the system works isn't as addictive as it used to be. So so let me just get rid of this thing then. But it was almost like my newspaper. I'd wake up and open up Twitter, like, okay, what happened overnight? Oh, okay, cool. Like this person died, or well, I mean, not cool, but someone died, or something happened in politics or whatever. Some new memes are on there. Nice. I spent a good 30 minutes, wake up. Now I can start my day. And that just was not good. So thankfully I've left that behind.
Do you ever feel FOMO for using these apps?
No. Uh well, I'm old now. I feel like I'm 28. So
You
if
don't
you were to
look it.
ask me, thanks. Yeah, I just cleaned up a little bit for this. So hopefully I look a little bit younger. But no, I feel like maybe 5 plus years ago, yeah, I'd be like, oh wow, I need to be up to date. I need to know if, LeBron got traded to the Cavs. Like this is big news. I gotta pay attention to this. And be the first to like react to it or retweet it or whatever the case may be. But now it's just like, okay, if I find out about it, nice. If I don't find out about it, it'll be like a pleasant surprise at some point. Um, and I mean, you could make the argument both ways, whether it's a good or bad thing. Because all this Trump stuff, like or the tariff news and all the changes, it's a one day one thing, the next day another thing. I feel like with his administration, you have to be up to date, otherwise you're gonna miss something crazy
Every day,
in
right?
between. Yeah, yeah. It's like you forget what you missed with Biden in office for the past 4 years, where during Trump's first term, every day he was tweeting something crazy in all caps and 10 exclamation marks, and now he's doing it on his own platform. Uh, but you didn't have to really pay attention as much in that 4 year gap where he was gone. But no, I feel like the FOMO thing is not so much of a problem as maybe it was when a few years ago.
Yeah, and speaking of Trump, I remember that social media before the pandemic was just kind of there. If you used it, you used it. If you didn't, you didn't. But after the pandemic, things really changed. I felt like it became hyperactive in a way where everybody was on it, and everybody you meet, it was like, hey, do you have Instagram or do you have this and that? And you exchange. And it became so much more solidified into actual life as opposed to pre COVID. I remember it wasn't, if I interacted with someone, it wasn't the same way as, do you have Instagram? We should exchange or something like that. It wasn't as necessary. It felt sort of personal life kind of a thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think the pandemic at the time, um, I didn't really think of it as anything quite crazy. It was just more so, yeah, it's maybe a couple months of things shut down, but then it really is a huge moment in our lives, to be honest. And of course, history books will talk about it and how for that time period, depending on where you are, right? I mean, in Texas, things reopened after a couple months, but in other places, they're shut down for a year and a half. And I think even in Asia, it was more than that. They were really strict in terms of lockdowns and rulings of what you can do throughout the day. And that turned, like you said, everybody online. So whether it's remote work, whether it's these apps, like I think TikTok probably shot up during that time in terms of usage by users. And everyone's just making videos or watching videos and playing games and everything. And that made I think, a fast forward in terms of the digitalization of our life now, seeing as there's some companies that are still fully remote or hybrid, and they had never even considered it at some point in the past. And everyone's on TikTok, everyone's on Instagram or something along those lines. And like you said, in person, you're not really talking so much about social media, at least not exchanging contact info for that. You just, if you see them on your kind of recommended thing, cool, yeah, I met this guy not too long ago. I'll add him or follow him. But now I think it's one of the first things people talk about, or maybe towards the end of the conversation, like, yeah, let's exchange not numbers, nothing like that. Let's exchange Instagram. Let's DM on there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I remember the
uh,
first day when the pandemic was officially announced, and I locked myself in my room, shut off the lights, time to go to bed. And I remember I threw my blanket over me and I had my laptop and I was watching Edward Scissorhands. And I was watching that movie and I'm like, this world will never be the same again. That world in that movie and the world we're living in now, it's different. We're never going to go back to that. And in a way, that does seem true, as you mentioned, the digitalization. It it becomes more and more apparent to me. It's a different world.
oh, for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I brought that part up about Edward Scissorhands to say that I remember feeling kind of scared and unsure what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. What was it like for you? Do you remember where you were the day it was announced? Hey, stay home. We're not going back to school or work or whatever.
Yeah, I was at work, I think. So at that point, I had just moved to Texas. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee originally. I spent most of my life there, and moved in end of 2018. So new job, new city, new everything. I think I was still doing my master's at the time, and it was a big kind of like transition, as probably you can imagine. And I was a year into kind of like figuring things out with, work. I mean, like not anxiety, but I was more self-conscious about like being up to par with everybody else because I was the youngest at the time, in the office and in the group. And I didn't want to screw up anything because if I did, then well, now I'm in trouble because my family moved to Texas with me. So I got a lot of things on my back. And yeah, alhamdulillah, I mean, thankfully everything like, went well. And right now I was hitting a groove, and we just moved into a new place in Texas or in Dallas. The COVID happened. So I remember that day, and I remember I was more sick than I've ever was in my life. I think I may have been patient zero in in the Plano area. I don't know, but I was crazy sick, and I think a couple days later, I got an email from coworkers saying that, oh well, it seems like it's getting a little bit wild now in terms of the news and the cases. Like, let's just for the next couple weeks, work remote. And I was like, great, I'll work remote. I'm happy with it. I don't want to go into the office anyways. And that 2 weeks became a month, and then 3 months, and for the year. And I don't think we came back until mid 2021 or something along those lines. So, or end of 2021. So I remember that day, and I remember just thinking it was temporary, and I was happy with it. And then as we went along, I kind of missed being back in the office and interacting with others, and I started getting really bored spending my day in the room. No gyms were closed at the time, so I'm doing home workouts and losing muscle every day. And it was just like, you look back on it kind of like with what's the phrase? Like rose-colored lenses or glasses, and say like, oh, it was nice. But at the same time, like during that time, It was like, is this ever going to end? Am I going to catch COVID and die? Like, look at all these cases online. And once you catch COVID, and sorry, I feel like I'm going to a whole nother realm from your question, but uh, catching it
That's
too
fine.
at that time with early on was like you thought you were gone. You thought you were a done deal. Because I caught it end of 2020. If I didn't catch it at the beginning and I wasn't patient zero, my first time was end of that year. And there was no flu symptoms. There's no like coughing or anything like that. All I know is that my taste and smell were gone immediately. And once I noticed that, I started freaking out because those are like I like to eat, and I don't want to lose that. I feel like it's my two most favorite senses. Um, and if you look at the articles at the time, no one knows what's going to happen. So like I'm reading things saying that people have lost their taste, and there's a good chance they'll never get it back, or they won't get it back for like a year or something. And or if they ever get it back, they'll never be the same. And I'm like, I can't read this stuff, man. It's freaking me out. I remember I bought a chocolate bar, and every day I would take a bite just to see if I can get the taste back again. And I was doing these TikTok remedies of like boiling an orange peel with lemons, and it was like a Jamaican recipe or something along those lines. And I made a drink out of that, and I'm chugging it with garlic and all that, and that didn't help. Over time, it came back, but like it was like phases. Like it wasn't the same for a solid 6 to 7 months. Um, so. To answer your original question, yeah, I do remember, and I remember that time period as well. And yeah, it was a crazy one for sure. But I'm not sure for you, like, how was it during that time? And I know you mentioned like that first day, but throughout like the next year, 2 years that it was ongoing, what was it like for you?
I remember I was scared in the beginning, unsure, uncertain about things. But hey, it's an extended spring break. So I'm glad. I don't want to go back to school. And that was nice. And then the following school year was also all online. So that was great. But I remember just, I felt like I didn't get closure with the people I knew before. Like there's people in my life right before the pandemic, and our journeys were still sort of unfolding. Pandemic happens. The majority of them, I'd say like 90% of them, I never saw again to this day. And then when we got out of that pandemic and back into real life, it was all new people. And that was wonderful to make new connections and stuff. But I always had that in the back of my head. I never got closure with those people I knew before. And it's like that chapter just abruptly ended. On to the next one. But yeah, that was cool. Um, the part about staying at home, I felt like I needed that isolation before I could come out again and interact with people.
Did you ever have the desire to, track those people back down and I don't know if reconnect's the right word, but as far as catch back up to some extent?
Some of them, yeah, but I guess it wasn't strong enough. I guess I was just looking forward and on to new horizons, kind of a thing. Did you ever feel like you lost touch with anyone?
Uh, so I think with it being so early on in my time in Dallas, um, I didn't know a ton of people just yet. You may have heard of Roots, an organization in Dallas for Muslims in general, but I think at the time they spent a lot of effort on the young adults, so like the 22 and up um, age range. And I went there end of 2019. Um, so literally right before the COVID kind of came down. And I met a few guys there and I started like meeting more Muslims because that was my whole goal is I want to make Muslim friends here. I don't want to just work or hang out with coworkers or something, I'm not going to go to a bar with them. I'd rather do something else like with people that are of the same faith. And those guys that I met, we I think we did our best, if I'm remembering correctly, in terms of meeting up, whether it was at Roots itself, because Roots kept on, I think they took a break, but then continued. at different places. And it'd be out on the lawn of like a masjid, like a older masjid, and they would run sessions there. And you just bring your own prayer rug, you bring a mask, and I think they'll separate everything I think 6 feet apart. Yeah, that was the distance at the time. And it was a way for you to like still maintain relationships. And also, of course, the most important thing was being there for the actual lectures that were being run. So it made it easy to keep up with people and not have to depend on like, okay, well, let me make sure I text this guy or call this person every so often because I'm not good at that. I will easily forget or not just put any effort into it. And it'll easily, unless the other person's more forthcoming than I am, um, cause relationships to kind of like fade away. I'm talking friendships, of course. So yeah, not so much, honestly, especially since I wasn't even in school like you were in terms of university in the same way. Um, I was already kind of out of that and just doing my best to maintain these new friends that I made and I think pretty much all of them I still talk to today. So it's a working kind of thing and COVID really made it hard, but there were things that were ongoing that made it kind of easy at the same time.
How about those people in Memphis? Did you ever feel like there was no closure or you lost touch with people in Memphis and you just kind of focused on the future?
So like I said, I'm a pretty boring guy. So I wasn't like a super popular person with like 100, 200 people that I knew. And it's like a farewell, teary goodbye. There are only a few guys that I consider like close friends from there. And of course I have a lot of family there, but that's of course something that wouldn't break, sorry, in the same sense as friendships. Um, so the thing is, those guys all kind of left Memphis to some extent. I think some have gone back as well. And during that time, we have huge gaps in like, or for some of them, huge gaps in communication and just keeping up in that way. But I think we were close enough at that time where it didn't really make that much of a difference to me, at least. Um, and so much so that they were at, my wedding last year, and there were no like awkward feelings or conversations or like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, I haven't seen you in X amount of years. Um, so not really, but I think I favored or I was lucky because I didn't have too many to keep up with. It was like 5 or 6 people tops, like if that. Um, so yeah, not too much to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating that you're from Memphis because I don't hear that commonly about Muslims being there. I think I've met only one other Muslim that lived in Memphis. When you're up there, what's the Muslim community like? And do you feel the culture of Elvis and Johnny Cash out there?
Um, the second part of the question, not so much, at least not to me. There is an area in Memphis called Graceland, and I think it's dedicated to Elvis.
Elvis's home.
Um, yeah, exactly. Yeah, his home. So I lived there from birth to when I turned 22.
Wow.
Yeah, 22. And I've never once been to Graceland. I've never had the interest. So I'm not really, and I grew up again. Memphis is like, I feel like it's its own state to an extent. It's just so different from like a Nashville or a Chattanooga or something along those lines. So not so much as that, but more so like the 3 6 Mafias or like those, and that's like a rap group that's from Memphis. And I think they won a Grammy during that time. And it's like the first group, like rap group. And like this is like a hood, like, like rap music group. Winning a Grammy was insane. And that's what like you kind of put Memphis alongside, other than like, Justin Timberlake or something along those lines.
He's from
Um,
Memphis as well. Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, not so much on the second part, but your first part of the question, I think you're talking about the Muslim community and how it is there. Um, it's not as big as Dallas, or as big as Dallas's or Houston's. Um, but there is a solid group. Yasser Qadi he actually spent a lot of time there
Right.
before he came to
That's
Dallas.
right. Yes,
Um,
I remember when I first met one of his sons. He told me, "Yeah, I'm from Tennessee," and I'm like, well, "What were you doing out there?" He's like, "Oh yeah, my dad he used to work there." I was like, "Oh, okay." And
yeah,
later on, I found out, oh, he's Yasser Gabi's.
yeah, yeah. He was the resident, I think, scholar or the imam for MIC, the Memphis Islamic Center over there, and that was like the nice masjid at the time. I don't know what else is there now, but MIC was like their newer thing and big plot of land and everything. And the masjid I was used to going to was a lot smaller. Um, so I think he brought more of like an energy, I want to say, or at least
Mm,
attention to the Memphis Islamic area or community. Um, and there are people there, and people won't know what Memphis is. They won't even recognize it as a city, to be honest. Some people have no idea what's going on there. I have a friend that constantly, and you met him actually, Husni. Every time I talk about Memphis, he's just like, "What the heck is Memphis? Like, what is this place? And what are you talking about?" It's a small place, and most people wouldn't move there unless you're retiring and you want something cheap. And there's not a lot of development, but there are I mean, there's definitely good people there. And I feel like I think it just needs a lot of work in terms of like infrastructure and attracting more talent and more people, and
mm.
that'll increase it into like I mean, like in Atlanta, I feel like that's a huge jump, but I feel like Memphis has the capacity. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty good group of I think Muslims there for sure.
Wow. I always think it's interesting how it has that name because it's an Egyptian name, the city of Egypt, of old Egypt, and I think they even have a pyramid in Memphis,
Yeah.
Tennessee, right?
Yes, it's, the pyramid. They used to have basketball games there. The Memphis Grizzlies used to play there, and I don't know what happened. I feel like I just missed that whole thing. But at one point, Bass Pro Shops bought it. I don't know if you know Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
they bought the pyramid, and now it's just a huge Bass Pro Shops store.
That is right. That is right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wild.
it's sad, but hey,
I
I
remember
know.
hearing somewhere that Sudan and Egypt were kind of like just one country and they had a very similar culture. Would Ethiopia also be included in that? Or you think no, very distinct?
I'd say it's more distinct. Not with that grouping of countries, at least. Um, Yeah, they're closer to like I think even geographically, I feel like if I'm wrong, it'd be embarrassing. But I think Somalia is not far. I know Eritrea is not far. And if you look at Eritrean and Ethiopian, you'll be like you won't really tell the difference
They're
a
very
lot of the time.
close.
Yeah, yeah. We're known for our East Africans are known for big foreheads, so you can see mine. And if you see a big forehead, and I mean there are other things, but you can kind of guess like yeah, they're probably from East Africa somewhere. It's one of those countries.
Do you ever
But
feel
yeah.
like your culture is underrated?
Um, yes. Uh, although, well, it depends, right? So if you're talking like generic or general Ethiopian culture, um, not really. I mean, you see people like The Weeknd, for example, this huge mega global star, he's Ethiopian. But there are, of course, subcultures within the country. And from where I'm from, it's a lot smaller. And I don't know much. I mean, I don't know the language in a fluent way. I just know bits and pieces, very small bits and pieces. Um, and those subcultures are the ones that are, I would say, like underrated and not as known. But it's up to like my generation and those under me to like keep it going and progress it. But I'm not helping the cause by not knowing the language in a fluent way or not knowing the culture in the best perfect way. So it's just, yeah, I feel like yes, it is underrated, at least the one I'm a part of. But I think the overall country, no, I mean I think there's others and big famous people that are out there that are Ethiopian that are paying attention to the country for sure.
Yeah. I saw this documentary about Ethiopian cuisine and just going around different cities and even among the tribes and trying the different food. And I gotta say, it looked really good. And I was just reflecting, man, there's so many beautiful cultures out there with all this stuff that could go over other people's heads. I didn't know about it until recently. That about the food palette of East Africa.
A lot of spice and a lot of hands. So
Hands?
Ethiopians, yeah, hands. So like you're not eating with a fork and knife or a
Oh,
spoon. It's
yeah.
like I don't know if you've seen the injera. It's a
Yeah.
big like fried or not fried, but like it's like a doughy type of thing where you use it as like your spoon. Basically, you scoop up whatever meat or veggies or whatever's
Yeah.
on
Like
the
the
plate.
naan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you'll get your hands messy and you're gonna deal with crazy levels of spice. And I can't, again, I'm not helping the cause here, but I can't handle the spice levels with our food for the most part. Um, but that's what sets it apart. And I feel like that's what makes it interesting for people to try at these restaurants and everything. And um, I feel like it is making progress in terms of being more known in like these American cities. Um, but I
Was
know
there a big
like
Ethiopian population in Memphis?
yeah,
Ah.
ish. Not as big as like Atlanta or even Dallas. I feel like Dallas is a huge one, but it's decently sized, I would say. But again, I don't, or I wasn't as involved as maybe others were. Um, so I could be wrong. It could be much bigger than I think it is. Decent,
Mm.
I'd say.
Yeah. With that being said, did you ever find it difficult to stay connected to your Muslim Ethiopian roots or traditions in either cities? Did you notice a difference, I guess?
Did I notice a difference in the city itself? Or you mean just keeping hold of it?
Well, I guess let me ask, did you ever find it difficult to stay connected with your cultural and religious roots before moving to Dallas?
No, no, I wouldn't say that. It's just because
Mm.
I mean, I never lived on my own or anything. So I was with my own family and that is constantly there. And I I feel like a decently sized extended family in Memphis, or like cousins and uncles at once, and being around them as often, you're not going to just forget about it. Um, so no, no, I don't think in Memphis, I don't think it's hard, nor do I say it's hard or was it hard coming to Dallas. It was just more of an adjustment. And I feel like if anything, it got stronger in Dallas here away from like the comfort or the how do I say it? Like maybe like the happy, easy bubble of being around family and always in Memphis in your hometown. Being here made me want to kind of understand and learn things more and be more strict with myself when it comes to, let's say, the religious aspect of everything, and more strict with my prayer or even not even just making all the prayers constantly or consistently, but even the attention within the prayer itself. So as far as like saying the right thing. So there was a point in time where I was like not even sure what I was saying or if I was even saying the right things, and I had to like look it up and like, okay, well, that was completely wrong. Like now I have to make sure I memorize all this and I don't say or shorten or cut anything off just because of my like ignorance to everything. So it pushed me down that path, and I think for the better. Those things are still, I mean, obviously stuck with me now, but being outside of, I feel like that Memphis bubble made me grow for sure more, and more than ways than one, but 100% with the religious aspect and everything.
Wow. They say that when you're young and you're growing up until your 20s, every year is a dynamic change in who you are as a person. But then at some point in your 20s, that kind of stops or it falters. You don't change as much. It's not as much as a dynamic jump. I'm kind of noticing that a little bit in my own life experience. Do you remember when you first noticed something like that? Or do you even notice that?
Um, so I noticed like a jump in terms of changes throughout like my 20s.
Yeah, like the way that you think and the way that you feel at the age of, say, 14 is very different from 16, 16 to 18. But at some point when you're in your 20s, that falters. You're You're not going to be the same person forever, but it's more or less the same. Your thoughts, your feelings, your perspectives are kind of fixed. They're not taking dynamic jumps. Was there a specific time in your life where you've experienced that I'm not changing so much anymore?
Uh, I think so, yeah. I'd say maybe like the mid-20s range. I think up until then, like every year was completely different with either what I would do or how I would, um, I guess I conduct myself or mindset or whatever the case may be. I feel like every year, up until, like I said, the mid-20s was noticeable. I'd say the last couple or a few, um, I wouldn't maybe call it drastic, but for sure, um, big enough jumps to where I feel like it's a different person from maybe like the year before, but not as wild as it was in the first half of the 20s, if that makes sense. So yeah, I do agree. As far as like maybe tapering off, it isn't as drastic as it is or as it was in those first few years. But I feel like if you're not changing at least to some extent every year, um, whether it's small or little or small or big, you're kind of wasting some time. Unless you're an amazingly perfect person, then hats off to you. But I don't think any of us exist. So we have we all have some work to do in some way, no matter what we think.
What do you
But
think's the
yeah.
biggest way you've changed in the past year to who you are now?
Uh, so like I mentioned, I got um, married last year in June, and I think that was. I mean, I feel like my not to say I was like some crazy short-tempered person, but my temperament, or maybe the way I how I communicate, or the I guess frequency of communication, or um, mindset, even like all those had to make pretty distinct adjustments to kind of transition into this next phase of life. And to be someone that's not like uh, a hard-headed, very solid person in the sense of, my way or the highway. I never really saw myself as that anyways, but I think this past year is where all of those like different pieces had to change in some way so that I can be, a decent person at least. So that's what I would say. And I think I'm lucky to have that as my example for your question because I think it's a huge thing that a lot of people make changes for. It's not just me. And they see themselves as like completely different people to some extent sometimes, with a marriage or anything along those lines.
Before you got married, did you ever feel hopeless about finding someone?
Uh, I wouldn't say hopeless, but I would say maybe anxious. Um, because I mean, as you know, like in Islam, it's not like a dating thing or like you don't get on a Tinder or whatever and hope to find your. I mean, I know now there's like Minders and those Muslim ones, but sometimes I still get those Instagram ads and they're promoting that stuff. But
Even after you're married, they're sending you this. Wild.
yeah, it's just like, yeah, I met my wife on this, or there's some Muslim influencer that's out there saying like, you can find your wife here and all that stuff. Even Mufti Menk, I love listening to his
Really?
lectures, but he was talking about a version of the one that he's kind of affiliated with. And I think it's supposedly different because there's I think it's a wahi, but like the middle person in between you and the girl that you're talking to. So it could be her brother, or it could be, I think sometimes they even use AI. I don't know now.
What?
Um,
AI Mehran. Wow.
yeah. So Um, and what was I saying? So yeah, I wasn't saying I wouldn't say I was hopeless, but more so like, okay, now it's getting to that point where I'm working, and if anybody asks me, I don't have a good excuse to say that I'm not looking to get married at some point. Um, but I know you're not married just yet, and you're pretty young, so it's probably on your roadmap somewhere. And I don't think that you're feeling hopeless. Hopeless, I would hope not. What are your kind of feelings now at this point? And I'm sure you're getting questions from like your aunts, or your uncles, or your parents. About like when are you gonna get married? once this all coming down, where are we getting the invitation?
Good question, man. It's crazy to say this, but at the age of 21 and 22, I felt so ready to get married. And I kind of knew the girl that I liked, and I was like, you know what? If that girl, if it could work out, I'm ready. But here I am, 24, and I'm not married. Um, I don't. I like how you use the word anxious. I'd say I'm something like that. Maybe like a lesser tier, but something like that. But at the same time, I'm a little bit more passive. I am not really looking. I'm just existing. And I'm doing what I'm doing. I've got my work to pay attention to. I've got my efforts to pay attention to. But I think this is actually something I wanted to ask you about. I I get this feeling that when you do find the person, it's almost you find them almost because you weren't looking for them necessarily. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's true. And from the people I've talked to that are married at this point, they all kind of echo the same thing. Not to say that if you're looking actively, then you'll never find the right person or a person in general. Of course, I'm sure there's tons of cases or situations where that happened, but um, I think once you take like the constant focus off of that and maybe that drive um, to the point where you're constantly thinking about it, you're doing all these different things, you're showing up at these events for the sole purpose of finding someone to marry, then um, I feel like you're not going to find maybe the best person for you. That makes sense because then there's a level of desperation after you've gone to seven, eight, nine events. Like, oh, okay, I still haven't found anybody, and you're just going to settle for somebody that's also looking and in the same position. So that happens, but um, when you're not actively like in that mindset, yeah, I would agree, and I think I mean it's the same thing on my side. So I would attest to it, and I feel like that's exactly what you're doing, right? That's what you said you're doing. You're focusing on your work and your own like endeavors. And I think naturally, whether it's from those things themselves and things that you're interested in that you meet somebody, or whether it's in these other things, whether it's like Islamic or culturally related events, then you'll just show up for the purpose of the event itself, and whatever happens, happens. But not actively like, okay, well, gotta keep my eye out. I gotta see who's out there, and for the purpose of getting married. So yeah, I would agree for that with that for sure. That statement.
I like the way you put that. And that word desperation, beautiful, beautiful, because I think that there is an element of it, and not to detract anyone or not to say that if you are actively looking, you're wrong. I think that that plays some element of it. It's in the back of your mind that you're kind of subconsciously thinking that. But as you said, 7, 8 events, you're out there. It's to me, it's almost as if you're a shapeshifter and you're trying so hard to attract whoever's out at that different event. But if you focus on yourself, you work on yourself, there's a saying, don't chase the butterfly, mend your garden, wait for the butterfly to come. I think that's what it is when you're just focusing on yourself. And this way also, you don't have to shapeshift. You don't have to camouflage. You can just say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I present. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, it just is what it is.
Fully agree. Fully agree. And I think, I mean, you're young. You're 24, right?
Yeah.
So most people are at this point in this age, like late 20s, mid 20s. They're they're finding somebody and getting married. And I think our parents are maybe the generations before them as well. They're like 20 years old, the first kid. What are you doing? You gotta get things moving. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, who knows? It's not the case today, or that isn't the case today. People spend more time figuring things out for themselves as far as how they are as a person, who they are as a person, and molding themselves into someone that they would like to be. And I feel like that's a huge, important part of it. Otherwise, you're rushing into something not even fully like, you know, um, I don't want to say like fully developed, but in some cases, yeah, where like you're not mature enough, or you're not emotionally mature enough, or you're not as invested or focused on your work or professional, occupations, whatever. You jump into something kind of head first without really thinking it through, and then you kind of screw over the person that you're jumping in it with. But of course, you can't say anything with full generalizations where that's always going to be an issue. I know there's 100% there's cases out there where everything works out well, but I feel like it's a good thing that people would take a little bit more time now. So long as it isn't like mid or late 30s or 40s, then it's like, okay, well, now if you have kids, you'll be 60 when they're graduating, and you don't want that. So it's like I said, there is a pressure when it comes to like the timing of things, but it has to be like a smart kind of pressure where it's not for no reason. It's not just because you want to, do it fast and be done. Um, so yeah, tricky subject, or not touchy, but maybe interesting subject for a lot of Muslim guys. I know we talk about it all the time. Oh man, I'm ready to get married. Just looking for the person. Um,
Yeah,
but
I like that bit of language you use. Smart pressure. That's good.
mm,
That's spot on. Do you recall a time in your life where you were perhaps in that sort of rush state and then you realized I have to back up a little and arrive in a position where I'm a little bit more calm and open to possibilities?
um, with moving to Texas, I'd say I think that's probably the most pressure I've ever had at that time. Um, because yeah, I felt like I was kind of young at the time, and it was a big deal to move everybody out to Texas, everybody being like my immediate family. Um, so leaving everything behind, new job, who knows what the job security is like, who knows what the city's like, who knows what's going to happen. But I had to make a decision because this recruiter reached out, and we had the interviews, and I was just doing it for fun to see what would happen. And it gets to the point where there's an offer letter in front of you, and you have until X amount of days to make a decision. Okay. Well, can I push the decision back? Yeah, you can push the decision back. Okay. Can I take a vacation before I go? I'm doing everything I can for them to just say no. I'm like, all right, cool. It's off my table, off the table. It's not even an offer that I can realistically take. It takes the pressure off of me, but everything was kind of agreed upon. So now it's coming to the point of, do I rush into this, and assume and hope for the best that everything works out? How much time do I have to make a decision? How much time do I have to kind of look into, whether the salary is enough, or whether the area is good enough, or whether there's, the work even itself is good in terms of the company or the position and the people involved there. So yeah, 100% I would say like that was, I think up until now, probably the biggest and stickiest decision to be made, where I felt like there's a level of pressure, but I don't think I had the freedom to make it um, an easygoing, uh, well thought out kind of process, in the way that maybe I would have naturally done, where I'm kind of indecisive at times. And you'll see me standing in like a Walmart aisle for like 20 minutes deciding on the right brand of or right bag of chips like I want to buy. I'm gonna look at the reviews. I'm gonna look at the flavors. I'm gonna like, you know what? I'm gonna go with this one. I don't care who's walking by, who's come gone. I'm gonna take my time and making this decision. Um, I didn't have that. I didn't have that chance, and I think that was a good thing for sure because it puts you where you're not comfortable, and that's, I mean, it's the most generic thing in the world. But when you're not in a place where you're not comfortable, you're never going to grow. And if you are, of course, then you will grow because you're constantly being challenged and pushed to do something that you're not 100% um, comfortable with, and I feel like it's needed. So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing so far.
What is your best advice for being decisive, for making a decision?
Give yourself a time limit. In my head, sometimes I count down like 30 seconds. I have 30 seconds to make a decision. At that point in time, when it reaches zero, I had to pick one or the other, or one amongst, a group, and move on with it and live with the decision. Take your time as far as like looking into it and making a decision, but you have to have a deadline or else you're going to be in limbo forever. And especially when there's not already a preset deadline, then you're going to be indecisive. And they call it,
Analysis
what's it called?
paralysis.
Exactly. That's what they call it.
It's a
And I get
demon.
stuck in
It's a
that
real demon.
100%. 100%. So that
Yeah, you
time
know, it's
limit is
funny. In
important.
Persian mythology, there's demons for everything, for every little thing. And I really wonder if there's one for analysis paralysis. I mean, there has to be one for that.
I wouldn't be
But,
surprised.
huh?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I love the example you brought up about making a decision between two chips in, Walmart or something, because I've been in shoes like that. Oh, which chocolate should I pick? This one or this one? And I have to sort of knock myself out of it and say, hey, it's just chocolate. Pick one. Try the next one another time or something. And if I had any advice to give, because I feel like this is something that I've been proactively making an effort to fix, it's just make a decision. Don't worry too much. Just make a decision because you have to break out of that loop, that limbo, as you mentioned. You have to leave.
Agreed. 100% agreed. It's easy just to debate in your head or wherever else for endless amount of time, especially if you don't have a deadline that's set by somebody else or something else, to where you feel 100% comfortable, everything checks out. But realistically, most of the time, you'll never have a 100% clear-cut answer to things where every box is checked. There's some things that you have to kind of live with, do your pros and cons, do your kind of, balancing between, whatever options that you have, and just move on, like you said, make a decision. Otherwise, yeah, you'll be standing in the aisle forever. And I've been there. I've been there for 30 minutes. Like, what is it I'm gonna get? I had to call somebody. I got call a friend and see what they think.
It's funny you say that because that's another thing I've been proactively thinking about. It's funny. I was in Istanbul a little over a year ago, and there was a merchant at the Grand Bazaar, and I was in one of these analysis paralysis situations where it's like, oh, should I get this thing? Should I not get this thing? I kept thinking, and my dad was there, and I kept asking my dad, you think I should not? And the merchant, he stepped in for a second. He's like, hold on, can I say something right now? I'm like, okay. And he said to me, you're the adult here. You make the choice. That's your father, yes, respect, but you make the choice. Do you want this or not? And I always remember it. Murtaza was his name, and that really hit me. And I don't stop thinking about that. That I'm the adult. I have to make the decision. And so it's always nice to refer to other people, but at some point you gotta lay it down that I am the man, and I have to decide for myself. Do I want this ice cream or the other one?
Yeah, I think once you reach a certain age, you can't depend on parents, obviously, to make decisions for you all the time. They can give advice. Yeah, feel free to listen to advice, but you have to kind of, I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest things of growing into the next phase of being an adult or whatever, is being able to be decisive or assertive. And I struggle with that all the time. I feel like that's still something I am trying to improve on, but it's
Yeah.
such a drastic thing in your life in general, day to day.
The irony of that is that's always something my dad says to me. Learn to make a decision. It's almost as if that is the key to being a man. Learn to make a decision. Man. And not only that, but also to be able to stand by it. There's a lot of things out there that sound like common sense or obvious, but sometimes you have to tell people. It's happened to me where sometimes I have to be told this is the truth, so to speak. And that happened with me when I heard what it means to be a man is to make a choice and to stand by it. It doesn't matter what other people think of it, if they like you for it, if they don't. You're a man. You made your choice. That's it.
And I think that's a huge part of it because when you make a decision, you also have in the back of your head, oh, I don't want to get blamed for this. You picked the wrong bag of chips for somebody else, for example. And you want to look back and have that person say, you picked this. What's your problem? This thing has, pork rinds in it or something wild. And you got to kind of like make sure you did the research and you do the best you can. And like you said, you stand by with whatever choice that you made, and not fear that hindsight kind of perspective that you'll have in an hour or in a week or in a year for whatever decision that you're making. Um, and just know that you did what you could with, or the best that you could with whatever info that you had at the time, and just move on. And that's also that's actually a good point. I think that's a huge part of my like analysis paralysis, right? Like you said.
Yeah, that was very liberating for me to learn that actually. I heard that from Nietzsche a couple years ago that whatever decision you made in the past, you did it based on your mindset at that time and the information that was presented to you. So his point was there are no wrong decisions that are being made. But I've been thinking about that so much that it's incredible how much of a difference informed decision making can have on a person's life. It's incredible. You feel less guilty even if things go wrong.
Because you did the best that you could. I mean, if you went in blindly and picked something with a flip of a coin, you have no one to blame but yourself, right? You left fate to a coin that can go either way, um, without doing the due diligence. So long as you've done that, yeah, there's no reason to be to I guess kick yourself for whatever decision you made. But like you said, the due diligence aspect of it is, I mean, it's the core. Whether it's like doing the review, searching for, the new Lay's flavor that came out before you came to the store. Yeah, you could have done that. It would have saved you like 10 minutes. I mean, now I do it. I have every app. I have my Walmart app. I have my Kroger app. I have the Target app. Look it up. Okay, cool. This is where it is in the aisle. This is the reviews. I'm going with this. And if I see something nice on the way, then I'll make a game time decision.
That is so useful for you to say that because that's another thing I've thought about where I'll walk into a store and I'm ready to buy a thing, but then I find myself pausing. I'm like, wait, what if this is cheaper on Amazon? Oh, now I got to
Yeah.
download the app or like go on Google. And that is another thing. It wastes your time if you don't have those apps. They can really save a lot of money.
Oh, agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, doing that research is a huge, like, it's a time saver at the end of the day. And you can
Yeah.
tell I'm a very, like, I love chips. So that's why I keep
You're
bringing
very
it up as an
passionate about the
example.
chips. Yeah.
Very. Yeah. If you
You
look
have a
at like
favorite
our
flavor?
cabinet here, sour cream and onion, Lay's sour cream and onion is number one for me,
Wow. For
without a
me,
doubt.
it's probably Miss Vicky's jalapenos. They're
Oh,
pretty
those
good.
are good too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those are the healthy ones,
I
or
suppose.
healthier.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, those are good.
Amaj, this has been a fun conversation, man. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here. It felt just as casual as if I ran into you at that wedding. It was a good time, man.
100%. Thanks for having me and having this conversation.
Yeah,
It's
I
good to
was
reconnect. It's
wondering.
been a while.
Yeah, yeah. I actually thought about having you on right after I met you. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I gotta talk to this guy on my podcast. But at that time, I had taken a little bit of a break. So now this is kind of like a getting back into it. So I'm happy we made this happen. But do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to? Or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Um, no, no. I think you made me um, have a conversation about myself without even me knowing as much, in terms of like the conversation being about some of the things that I've done and maybe some of the insights that I've gotten over the years. And I think you do a great job at it. And like I told you, I think at the time you have like an energy where it's almost like I'm sitting in a therapist session where it's like, yeah, let's, we have a conversation and you're asking me questions that are, I think, insightful, and it has a good conversation. I mean, starting off with Hazel Lassie, I didn't even remember that story as much as I maybe probably I did at the time. Um, and then us now talking about being decisive. It's like all over the place in a way, but also in an organized way. And I really appreciate kind of like that I guess that method that you take there. And also just in general, like the way that you handle the conversation or you handled the conversation. So no real like insightful closing thoughts, only being decisive is important, like you said. There's a lot of growing that you do in your 20s for sure. And marriage is something you have to do. So you have you have stuff that you work on for sure for yourself and for others, and you just do the best that you can. I mean, none of us are perfect, so it's just trial and error over and over again.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much for saying that, man. It's very kind of you. Alhamdulillah, it's I'm only allowed to because of God. But as you said, I'm so happy that we also reconnected. It was very nice meeting you at that wedding. It was a good time. You have this energy. It's a very positive energy. I'm drawn to it. It glows. So thank you again, and I hope to reconnect sometime in real life, eh? Inshallah.
Absolutely, inshallah. If you come down to Dallas or come over to Houston,
Yes, sir.
we'll do
Yes, sir.
that.
I suppose until next time, eh? You take care.
Sounds good. Thank you. See you.
Yes, sir.